Guys, we've all seen these crates in social media, DIY magazines. Well, I'm going to show you how to make them. I'm making it out of 12mm plywood. I've got a sheet of plywood over here. A full sheet makes 4 of these crates. Take that cutting list down to the guys at Builders and they will cut it all to size for you. You get all your pieces, much easier to fit into your car. As you can see, I've got them on wheels, so it makes life much easier to use. They're ideal if you want to start stacking them. And I'm going to go with this studded effect all the way around to join the slats to that front face. Alternatively, you can do pocket holes. I've got pockets on the inside here. I use my Craig jig. That's just another way that you can assemble it. We're going to take you through all the steps and show you how simple and easy this is for you to do. The materials you're going to need: 1 sheet of 12mm plywood, cut to my cutting list. I'm using some wood glue, some 3.5mm by 25 long self-tapping screws, some 3.5 by 13mm screws, some casters, and some spray paint to decorate it. As for the tools that you're going to need, I've got a pencil and a tape measure, a 4mm wood bit, a 25mm spade bit, and I've got my 3 power tools, cordless drill, a jigsaw, and a sander, the 3 most important tools that you should have in your home or workshop. We've got 2 panels, a front and a back. Now you'll notice with your timber, look at all the beautiful grain structure and different styles that you have. Choose which side you want to be the top. And what's nice about it is when you paint it, you still see that character coming through. I really love it. So let's put that one piece aside. We're going to start off with our first piece. And what we're going to do is we're going to mark all the positions of the holes all the way around so we can drill all these in evenly and neatly. So I try to avoid using a tape measure as much as possible, but to start off with, it's important that when you drill your screws in, that it goes into the center of the timber, not too close to the edge, otherwise it's going to burst out. I've got a 90mm slat. I'm going to go about 20 mils in on either side. So it's going to be half the thickness of the material. We know it's a 12mm slat, so we're going to go in about 6 mils. Take your slat and then just mark where you're going to be drilling your hole. I want it going in that middle section of the ply. So I'm going to make a mark there, all the way down to the bottom and on either side. There's your slat. You're going to use that as a straight edge, line it up to your points, strike your line all the way across. Right, that's my center line marked of where I'm going to be drilling through. I now need to get the positions and even. Now, because it's going to be a focal point on the front, you want it as even as possible. That's why I've set up this jig with the markings at 20mm in on either side. So take your first slat. You can see the first one sits at the top, the second one sits at the bottom, and there's approximately a 12mm gap in between, which just happens to be the thickness of the material that I'm using. So I find it easier. I've got one thickness, so I'm going to roll it over. There's my next markings for the next 2 screws. Over and down again. The bottom is slightly different. We've got to take into consideration the thickness of the timber, and I've allowed 1 space on the inside. So we're going to start off with a double slat spacing. Line up your your two pieces. That's going to give us spacing for the side of the slats plus the first spacer. Roll him over. Same again. Those are all the positions that I've got for my screw holes. Now you can see our line is very close to the edge, so we've got to drill a clearance hole. I'm using a 3.5mm screw, so I'm going to be making use of a wood bit. Now I'm using a 4mm wood bit because you don't get 3.5s. And you'll see on the front of the bit, there's a sharp point. And then you have the flutes on the side. What's nice about a wood bit is designed to cut through the timber irrespective of the grain structure. If you're using a normal metal bit, it tends to wander on as it goes across different grain structures. We're going so close to the edge, we want our hole to be straight and we don't want that hole to move. Line your tip into your cross point, gentle push, and then get the speed going onto the drill. Make sure your drill's square and then drive it all the way through. I'm more than happy with that. I now want to accommodate my handle. I'm going to cut a handle in here. So let's find our center point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark down 40 mils in and then 40 mils either way, and that's going to be the center point where I'm going to use my spade bit to drill the hole for my handle. So keep firm pressure on the downside of here with a spade bit. You can also use a Forstner bit. A Forstner bit has a much cleaner cut. Spade bit can be a bit rough, but they're a lot cheaper. Keep a good firm force down to prevent that breakout on the bottom side of the timber. Now, if you want to, you can actually go with holes here for your handle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to join a line between those two edges and then cut that out with the jigsaw to make that handle cavity. Okay, exactly the same process for your next piece. With all the holes drilled, I actually find it easier to sand it now. Now, 12mm ply, it's normally got a really good finish as it is, so you don't need to be too aggressive on the sanding. I'm using a 180 grit, so it's basically just a bit of a clean up, a bit of a polish, and get rid of any splinters or any blemishes. Okay, once you've got your timber all sanded down, it's now time to decorate it. Now, it's entirely up to you how you want to paint it. You can spray paint it, you can stain it, you can even leave it in its natural look if you wanted to. I'm going to match up with these other ones where I've just sprayed the front piece and then I've attached our natural slats to that. Allow that to dry and then we can start the assembly. That's my panels all painted up, I'm happy with that. We're now going to start with our first slat, connecting it to our front panel. Okay, so take your first slat, wood glue on the mating surface, you don't need to put too much. Okay, so I'm going to join that slat to this panel. I'm going to take the panel, hold it in an upright position, and the slat down flat, flush with the top edge of the box. What I like to do is just hold the top slat down and the slat into position, take one screw, drive that through. Pop in the next screw. Right, now I've got the top piece and the bottom piece. The next piece is the middle slat, and I just like to evenly space that, eyeball it to get that in the middle. There's our stud look on the front. It looks really cool, and that's why I try to pay attention at the beginning to make sure we get all those lines in a straight line, so all those holes are even, so it looks nice. So let's start with the bottom section next. Right, before we put it on the next slat, let's put a little bit of wood glue. And to keep my spacing even, just pop in a slat there, and then I'll slide that guy up. And remember, when I did my measurements earlier, I used the slats as spacers, so I know that's going to be in the perfect position to accommodate my screws. I like to go to the other side now, make sure I've got that double spacing. There you go, looking good. Okay, next two pieces, you can evenly space those into the center. Now doing the side bit, this can be a little bit tricky because we've got a slight offset and it's not going to balance. So take your first slat, pop it with wood glue, pop it down into position and pop another one as a spacer just to elevate that side edge. So when I place it down, it can rest on top and that can just take the load there. Line it up into position and put those two screws in. Okay, that's our one side complete. We're now going to put wood glue on all of these edges and pop in our next side. Okay, that's the structure. I'm going to flip that over on the underside and then I'm going to put in some casters. Just going to evenly space them. And this is where I'm going to use my 13mm screws because I've only got a 12mm timber. That's the last caster wheel in. Now it's time to put it to the test. Ha! A strong and sturdy crate that looks fantastic with those screws acting as studs on the front. What I really like about this is being able to stack them as well. So this DIY is complete and I'm very happy with the end result. And having a bit of a recap, 12mm plywood, all cut to size, makes 4 of these boxes, 4 of these crates, and the most important thing is the tools that you use. Cordless drill, jigsaw and a sander, the key tools for any successful DIY. If you enjoyed this clip, like it, share it. You can also subscribe to the Builders Fan YouTube channel. There's a range of product reviews and DIYs just like this for you to be inspired, get to Builders, and get it done.